Hi, everybody. Welcome. This is Pages Promotions presents a special literary event with Kristoffer Gair. We are super excited. Kristoffer is a very good friend. He is a very fine supporter of indie authors everywhere and, just generally a decent human being. So I love the fact that we get to help promote his work. Today, the launch event is for his fourth book in the Falling Awake series. It's called Retribution. This is the first, I think, wide-scale promotion of the book and the cover, so I'm super happy that we're able to bring that to you today. This, if you don't know him already, is Kristoffer Gair. This is his series, Falling Awake. There are 4 books in the series, and he tells me that there might be another 1 or 2, right, Chris?
Not that I've announced it or was going to, but possibly 1 more.
See, this is the thing. Don't tell me secrets. It'll ruin you. Okay. Yeah, I am not the person to tell secrets to. It's just not a good idea. So welcome today. For those of you who don't know, Pages Promotions is an independent author advocate. My passion in life is sharing independent authors and their work with you and connecting you to them. And so 3 times a year, we do virtual book festivals to share authors and their books and simply just, have a good time with the written word. So that's what we're doing tonight. We're in the middle of our June Summer Reading Regatta right now. And we thought we might take this afternoon to do this little chat with Kristoffer. Hey, Chris, welcome officially to the room.
Thank you. Been here the last 18 days?
Yeah, 18 days now. It's insane. So I want you to, because this is being recorded and I know the majority of the people in the room are your happy friends, but can you just give us some background on your writing career? Talk a little bit about maybe the types of books you've written under your pseudonym, and then tell us about the Falling Awake series, if you would, please.
Oh, I've got 4 pages of notes to go through. I'm going to have to go through very quickly in order to get this all in.
Okay.
First of all, thank you for doing this. I appreciate it. I did not get an opportunity last year when I published Falling Awake 3, which took me 2 years to write. It was like giving birth to that one, especially during the editing process. And I didn't get a chance to even do a launch because of COVID. So being able to do something like this, well, at the end of COVID, even digitally, is really nice. It's a treat for me to do, and I greatly appreciate it. So Diana, thank you for the offering.
I'm happy to do it. You know that. I'll support you anytime I get.
And thank you to everyone who attended today. Honestly, I really thought I could get maybe 5 to 10 people. She told me there were 42 signed up, and I'm like, oh God, little pressure. Okay, but for those of you who are not as familiar with me, I actually started writing when I was in 1st grade. I wrote my first puppet play in 1st grade, wrote one in 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, had an evil tyrant in 5th grade, stopped writing altogether. I wrote what I thought would be the beginnings of a book when I was in 8th grade. It was pretty bad, but the funny thing is when I look at it nowadays, I still have it. I can see very early on the type of delivery that the characters I write today have. They have a little bit of sarcastic quirkiness to them. I can see that even in 8th grade. Wrote a short story in high school. It was equally horrific. Got into college, started writing a novel with my mentor, which was even worse. I honestly, looking back at it, don't quite know how I got away with that one. After I graduated from Grand Valley State, one of my former high school teachers, who was my 9th grade English teacher and my 12th grade history teacher, approached me about a book she wanted to write. It was a historical book based on a real person, and she wasn't sure how to start it. So she said, can I pick your mind for a couple of days, give me a couple of ways to start it, and then I'll be on my way? I said, sure. She came back to me 2 weeks later and said, how would you like to write the book? So I faked my way through liking history, not a fan, pretended I was, wrote the book, was the first book I'd ever completed, and I got to tell you, well, got correct already. Okay, who is, just out of curiosity, who's not on mute?
I'm going to fix it. Go ahead.
Thank you. Oh, it was my aunt. Okay, you're going to be hearing that from me later. finished the first draft of it, and it was like crack for a writer. You finish that first draft, you want another one. At that point, I'm going to say it was towards the end of the 90s. I had come out at that point. I was dating someone, and I wanted to write something that was on my own, something that was maybe funny, that was within the LGBT genre. And to do that, back then, it was not quite as accepting as it is today. We've got problems today, but it was far less accepting then. So I had come up with a pseudonym, which were my initials, KAG. I added an E. My husband and I share the same middle name, which is Allen, but I took his spelling, came up with the name Cage Allen. And I wrote 3 comedies during that time. I wrote A Funny Thing
Okay,
Happened on
so
the Way.
can I just interject here for a second, Chris?
Sure.
I'm so glad you told that story because I've known you now for 10 years going on, and only just now do I understand where your pseudonym came from. So thank you for that story. Okay, you may continue.
3 books I wrote during that time were A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to My Sexual Orientation. I wrote the second book in that called Andy Stevenson versus the Lord of the Loins. Then I decided to break away from that, wrote another comedy called Galius Operation Thunderspell. Learned about head hopping because apparently with the first 2 books, you can't do that when you write first person, but when you're writing third person, you can head hop like crazy, which is exactly what I was doing. And I found no problem with doing that whatsoever. And I found out later on you're not supposed to do that. So that was a tough one to learn. Just before Galius was released, my father was diagnosed with advanced Alzheimer's. And I spent several years being a caregiver with him. I had left my job a couple of years later after that to help be a caregiver for him. During that time, I did not write another book. I just didn't feel I had it in me. Things were not exactly great with the Alzheimer's. I mean, prior to that, I used to think that everything in life you can find humor in. Alzheimer's really challenged me. And there were a couple of funny moments during that time. The only one that comes to mind right at the top of my head is I was walking my father over at Macomb Mall. Dad was very repetitive at that point. So as we're walking around about every 2 minutes, he was like, thank you for the walk, thank you for the walk, thank you for the walk. I mean, it's constant. We get outside and I had forgotten to put his handicap sticker placard up in my vehicle. It was right on the dashboard. Came out and I had gotten a ticket. My fault. But I saw the ticket and I went, crap. My dad said, what's the matter? I said, well, I got a ticket. He's like, oh, thanks for the walk. I'm like, really? So there was a little humor to be found in that. Also during that time, that's when I started losing people. I'd never had that many deaths in family, never had that many friends who had passed away before. And it's almost become a little bit of a joke to me now that my life has a body count going for it that I'm keeping track of. But during those 5 years, the only thing that really saved me and put me in front of other readers was I was invited when I'd gone to a thing called AtlantaCon. It was an LGBT convention down in Atlanta. And there was a panel of us doing sci-fi and literature. And somebody came up with the idea of doing an anthology. And of course you say, oh yeah, of course I want to do it. And you're thinking it's never going to happen. It did. And it was called Butt Pirates in Space. Obviously a comedic anthology, meant to be comedic. Most of us had such a good time doing it. I hadn't anticipated I would enjoy writing short stories. I like writing longer pieces, but we enjoyed it so much. We called it the Buttthologies. We did Butt Ninjas from Hell, Butt Babes in Boyland, Butt Riders on the Range, and the final one was Butt Villains on Vacation, because at that point we loved alliteration.
Oh my gosh.
But that was the only thing that I could actually write a year, was maybe a 30-page short story. I just didn't have it in me. And to give you an idea, I eventually did see a grief counselor about this because I was not sure how to cope with what was going on in my life at that time. In 2013, my father-in-law was diagnosed, or 2012, he was diagnosed with cancer. He passed in 2013. A year to the day later, my mentor from Grand Valley State, Milt Ford, passed away to the day, also from cancer. 2015, there was a fellow author out of Chicago. I don't know if anyone here would remember him or knew his name. He wrote under the name Dorian Gray. His real name was Franklin Roger Margison. And for anyone who has read any of the Falling Awake books, specifically the second one, I named the character of Frank after Frank Marguson, my friend Dorian Gray, because in one of his mysteries, he named a character after me who was a real SOB. And he did it because he had a little man crush on my husband, and he put Ralph in there. And he made Ralph just this little angelic character and me this beast of a person. So I thought, well, I'm going to put Frank in here as a joke, and Frank ended up being a much nicer character than he should have been.
So
But
I'm guessing Ralph really enjoyed that little tribute.
I don't think he read it, but I told him about it, and he kind of chuckled it off. He thought that was nice, especially that my character was portrayed like I was. But a month after Dorian passed away, my father passed away. And 2016, I had a very, very good friend of the family who was a former boss, who was a very, very good friend. She passed away from cancer. And 2017, I think that's when I needed to hit a reset button. I was still writing under the Cage name. I was still trying to figure out who I was at that point, dealing with grief. And my husband just said, here's what you're going to do. You're going to stop writing under Cage. You're going to be one person. You're going to stop writing for a while. We're going to figure this out, and we're going to go from there. So we hit the reset button. And when I came back out of it, 6 months, I did 6 months of no writing whatsoever. And writing for me is like breathing. If I am not writing, I am not happy, and I do not feel complete. Took 6 months off, came back, started writing under my own name again. 2018, I mean, this gets a little lengthy here. We lost a very good friend of the family from Chicago who Ralph used to live with. Lost her, I want to say, in March. In early May, my mother had a stroke. 2 weeks or a week or two after that, my grandmother, who was living with my mother at the time, my grandmother died. A couple months after that, my mother died. So that was like 3 whammies that month, period. 2019, my co-author for the historical book, Diane Abbott, she passed away from cancer. Also at the end of 2018, my best friend from college was diagnosed with brain cancer. So just one catastrophe after another. And unfortunately, in 2020, last year, he passed. So 2021, keeping my fingers crossed, everything seems to be going okay, knock on wood, hoping it stays this way. It would be nice if it did. Incidentally,
well, I've got to say, you're doing a great job managing all this grief by writing this amazing series. I mean, this series has got to be a real helpful conduit for you, because it is totally different from what you've traditionally written, and it's got a lot of really poignant stuff in it. Did you find that connection to your grief and this series, or did this series just simply happen and you didn't realize the connection till later?
the first one happened, well, the first one I wrote during my father's last year alive, and I didn't realize why I was writing it. I just knew that I was writing it. A friend pointed out to me later on, he says it was almost very Japanese in thinking. And Japanese say, just go and do something and then figure it out why you did it later, versus the American way of thinking of, why do I have to go and do this before I go and do it? I did not realize that at the time in my life, I just didn't feel like I had hope because of everything that was going wrong.
Sure.
And these characters are searching for hope. The whole setup of the first book is about, will there be hope or won't there be hope? So that's kind of how that first book came out. I didn't realize at the time, I honestly thought that it was a short story, it turned out to be a novella. And I didn't realize at the time either that I was essentially plunking you right into the middle of a story.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
a book, but it turns out it's now the middle of the story.
Yeah, I thought when I first read it, I thought, oh wow, there's so much more to this. I hope he writes more, because it's true, you did kind of like drop us in the middle, which is great for a series, because then it creates all this appetite for more writing. So kudos to you for doing it that way. I understand it wasn't completely intentional, but I think it worked out great in your favor. Absolutely.
The way I looked at it was the first book, this little thing here. I thought if I told anybody how I felt it ended, that it would just be spoiling things. I figured these two books here were all in my head, and I thought, well, if you've got that first book, you could figure these two out on your own. I had no intention of writing another story, another book in this at all. Absolutely none. But there was a
Okay,
friend of
so
mine.
coming as a professional editor speaking to you now, I'm so glad you wrote the other books, because it's true. So many of us don't understand that what's in our head cannot always be magically transferred to the reader. So I'm really, really glad that you took the time to put the words to paper, because the story is so much richer for it.
What I found out was that when a friend of mine, she used to write under the name J.P. Barnaby, Trish Gillum. When she read the first book, she sent it back to me and she said, "You can't end it this way." I'm like, well, yeah, it's the end of the story. It's done. There's nothing else. Absolutely nothing else. And people responded to that first story in a way that I had not anticipated. It was the most reviewed book I'd ever had and the best reviewed. And I'm like, all right, what did I do different? People were used to me writing comedy. I'm used to making people laugh. Now all of a sudden I'm making people think, which before, when I was writing comedies, family and friends used to say, when are you going to try and write something, serious? When are you going to give that a shot? After the second Falling Awake book, I got asked, when are you going to write comedy again? People are a little fickle, no one's happy with it. But with the second book, I decided if I was going to do a story, I was going to do it my way. The natural progression would have been to pick up with the third book, finish the story that the first one set out to. And I think that would have been a cheat, because to me, if you say, hey, you got these characters here and they're up against some very bad people. All right, who are bad people? I could tell you, I could say they're bad, or maybe I could show you. So I took a step back, went back a little bit in time, set it in 1972, 14 years after a murder that they talk about in the first book, and set the book in 1972 with a character who was in the first book. He was a secondary character, and did that going forward, and ended that, and then picked up in the third book after the first book ends. In fact, the end of the second book drops you into the middle of the first book. It's weird how it's straight in my head, but I can't explain it very well.
But it reads great. I mean, it absolutely reads great. I would absolutely recommend that people read these books in order.
Yes, you really do have to.
But if you read them in order, even though the timeline is not necessarily congruent, the story is. So I do recommend that everybody read these in order, but read them all.
Well, the funny thing is number 4 is a continuation of number 2, takes place a couple weeks after the second book ends. However, a character in the second book shows up in the third book some 20 some years later. He's an older character now. And there are parts, he has his own chapter. He was going to get like a little mention, but he ended up with a chapter. And there are things that he alludes to that happened after the second book ends that you kind of need to know about before you get into the fourth book. So unfortunately, it doesn't work.
Read them in order. Yeah, they're not
absolutely.
standalones. This is absolutely a congruent series. So definitely read them in order. Okay, Chris, I know I'm probably going to throw you off script, but
shame on you.
My show. So I would love it if you read a little bit from Retribution, and then I'd like to take some Q&A from our audience, if that is agreeable with you.
That's fine. I've got 2 pieces prepared for Retribution. To set up the, I have no idea if anyone has read, or how much, if you've read any of them, or if you've only read a couple of them, 2 of them. As I mentioned, it takes place in 1972. It's 2 weeks after the second book has ended. 2 of the characters in the second book have passed. And I thought it would be interesting from my perspective to pick up the story again with some of the other secondary characters who I had really, really come to enjoy and like in that second book. The setup for this particular scene, there was in the second book, the main character, Andrew, he's investigating a murder that happened 14 years ago when he was 10 years old and his best friend was killed. He didn't quite know how he was killed, but he found out much later on that there was a bit of a cover-up because the police did not want word getting out because it would just freak out the entire community. And he convinces another officer there named Bolio to take him to this house where Thomas had been murdered. And he puts things together, figures out how this murder took place. Well, Frank, who ends up becoming a love interest of Andrew during that period, Andrew is no more. And Frank, 2 weeks afterwards, finds out that someone else in town has been murdered, and it looks like it could very well be the same person who murdered Thomas 14 years earlier and who may have been responsible for murdering Andrew 2 weeks prior. And when they discover the body, written in blood next to the body is the word shh, meaning don't come after me, don't look, or this will happen to you. They figure it's a message from the killer. Frank decides to send a message of his own. And Frank, at this point, because of what he's gone through with losing Andrew, is a completely broken man. So he is essentially driving out to the house where Thomas was killed, where Andrew had been 2 weeks prior when he was putting things together in his head. Complicated, I get it. So.
Well, this is what happens when we're reading book 4 in a 4-book series.
Yes. Frank turned the engine off. Yeah.
No, go right ahead. Go right ahead. I'm sorry.
Frank turned the engine off and opened the door. Not a peep, no sounds, nothing. No insects buzzing, no life. A feeling of terror for some, a feeling of hope for another. He carried a smaller flashlight with him in the trunk, or to the trunk, picked up 2 of the large gas cans, then tucked the light under his arm while he carried the cans away and into the darkness. And he remembered. He remembered hearing about the death of Thomas Reese from the others, about Thomas's family, and a house where Thomas had been killed, about how the folks in town might behave if they knew what had really happened, about how the families reacted after the funeral, or at least one family, Andrew's family. He remembered Andrew's words. I wasn't the same after the funeral, or at least that's what my parents started to notice. I had a brother and sister, but I stopped playing with them. I didn't laugh, I didn't smile, and I didn't seem to get any enjoyment from anything. They said I was going through the motions of living. Frank understood Andrew's feelings all too well. Another reason the 2 of them were connected, their lives mirroring each other in ways they never could have predicted. He followed the grass and weeds that had only recently been trodden on a few weeks earlier when Bolio had taken Andrew through the very same area. The trail remained faint, yet there someone remained determined to find it. Through darkness, with a single beam, and only the sound of his footsteps and heartbeat as company. Andrew. My parents never yelled at me or demanded to know what was wrong. They knew. And when they found a house we could afford about 30 miles away, Mom and Dad made sure I had a room of my own again so I could work things out without feeling embarrassed about it in front of my siblings. I did. Need to, that is. I needed to work things out. I remember the day we moved in, walking into my bedroom and finding a set of little twinkly white Christmas lights on the ceiling. I thought maybe the previous people who lived there left them, but they didn't. The house where Thomas had been murdered stood before him now, stood waiting like a canker sore on the face of the earth, or a cancer waiting to spread. Why hadn't the place fallen yet? Why hadn't the wood rotted with age and its stench finally dissipate? It held memories in its walls, its floors, and the very structure itself. The house had become a monument of memories, memories of the screams of a 10-year-old child, memories of Thomas as he slipped from this world into the next, and of the officers who found his body, their cries, their nightmares, of Andrew's nightmares. Try that again. My father came in to say goodnight to me that first night, plugged the lights in, pulled the desk chair up next to where I was lying in bed, and sat. He didn't say anything for a while. Instead, he just looked up at the lights while I stared at them too. I wanted to ask him why he'd hung them up, especially since he'd obviously put them there for me. Without my saying a word, he reached over, brushed the hair out of my eyes, and said, because stars will lead the way. Whenever you feel lost, they'll light the sky. If one of the men responsible for killing Thomas had returned to the cemetery and demolished the family's headstones, then it followed he would return to this place too. He'd revisit the memories, bask in their frozen, timeless glow, and revel in the putrescence. And this person dared send a message to them demanding their silence? Oh no. Frank removed the cap from both large gas containers and began splashing the fuel all along the side of the house. It was all he could smell. Very odd. Almost as if the house mocked him and dared him to go inside to see the horrors it held. Or perhaps the house held its breath in anticipation of finally being set free. Maybe it never wanted the memories it held, never wanted to become what it had to the people who killed the Reese family, and probably so many more. Of what it had become to Andrew. If only Andrew's father knew the comfort his son took for those simple lights, that simple action. He spoke those words to me a couple times in my life, whenever he felt I needed to hear them, and I always think of him when I see lights like the ones in that bedroom. They take me away from the ugliness. Frank set both containers down a few feet from the house, his back to the place, and brought out a matchbook. His breathing never quickened. His heart never raced. He wasn't a robot, but rather a man on a mission, and nothing would stop him this night. You take from me, I take from you. He lit a match and tossed it back over his shoulder. The gas ignited with a whoosh. Then came the unmistakable crackling of wood and dead grass around the place. The area in front of Frank came into focus a little at a time from the glow behind him, a glow that continued to grow as the flames spread. Fire, the destroyer, but also the cleanser, the purifier. And something would rise from the ashes, not a phoenix, but something else, reborn and changed forever. Frank picked the empty gas containers back up and headed towards the car, no longer needing the flashlight. He never even looked behind him. Let there be light.
Wow, thank you very, very much. That's awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Wow. Okay, so at this point, I'd like to take some questions from our room. If anybody has questions for Kristoffer, and then we can chat a little bit more. Brent, go ahead.
Well, the fact that you wrote 3 books in a series and every one of them feels completely different in tone and style is amazing to begin with. But this one is really different from the other 3 because it's a lot lighter in the paranormal aspect, but some really fantastic characters. So kind of tell us about how you went about this so differently than the other 3.
The other 3 books, to me, were incredibly dark. I was not used to writing dark. And after 3 very, very dark books and being a little depressed and crying when I'm writing them, I wanted to do something where instead of these people being hunted, the hunters became the hunted. I wanted to turn the tables. I wanted to go that route with it. And I wanted to take some of these secondary characters that I'd really come to like in the second book, and I wanted to learn more about them. The main character, as it starts off in the 4th book, is a retired police chief who has turned to cold cases. He likes solving cold cases. And where I really got hooked into that, I was reading up on cold cases just to see if I could do anything with it. And there was a case, it was a child's body, 10 years old, found back in 1998. And they could not figure out, they called him the billboard boy, or the boy under the billboard. And the guy who worked the case finally cracked it, I want to say in 2018. It took him until the day he retired before they finally got a hit. And I believe the child's name was Robert Adam Witt, which is the same initials as my husband. And this child ended up being half Asian, half white, also like my husband. So I thought, wow, that's kind of creepy, but kind of neat. And I was reading about why he was hooked on this case, why he wanted to solve this cold case. And I thought, you know what? These are qualities I'm going to instill into the main character in this 4th book and what drives him. He ended up with a backstory that I didn't see coming. I didn't quite know until I wrote it. And I thought, well, this is kind of neat. And I put it in with the current captain of that police force in Iowa. The main character had trained this guy. So you have the one guy who's very big into justice, the guy who's very big into loyalty. And then I brought Frank into it because Frank works at the same department. Frank, who has lost all hope, needs a reason to live, he ends up getting involved in this too. So you've got 3 very strong characters wanting to solve something, and they don't care how they're going to do it as long as it gets done. And I thought that to me was worth telling. That was interesting because it doesn't repeat the other 3 books.
Right, yeah, it does stand out in that way. Do we have any other questions out there? I know we've got 44 people in the room, so feel free to raise your hand, or physically or digitally, and let me know if you have questions.
Chris, talk about Virginia.
Okay. In the second book, it alludes that Roy, the current captain of the police department, has a wife who's a little touched, and you don't really get to meet her. You don't get to know her. In the 4th book, you really get a good dose of Virginia, who's had a stroke at some point. She lacks a filter. She's the sweetest one in the world, but what comes out of her mouth just comes out whatever she's thinking. And she provides the levity that I think the character of Alex provided in the 3rd book has moved on to her, because you needed to have some lighter moments in it, and she provided those.
And she steals the scene.
She really does. In fact, there was a scene with her, and I won't get into specifics, but in this story, I wanted at least 3 moments where a reader could read this and go, yes, I did something different. I took you by surprise. And when my first editor, Eden Winters, was going through it, she got to a point I knew she was going to be like, okay, no, you didn't, or no, you better not. And I got a text from her and she said, I'm getting to this part here. If you do what I think you're going to do, I am going to drive up to the south and from the south and put my foot up your rear end. I'm like, keep reading.
I know exactly the scene you're talking about because I was thinking the same thing.
It's really good to have motivational editors, don't you think?
Well, I love Brent as an editor. I can't say enough good things about Brent as an editor. He has a very unique way of doing things. When I was writing the 3rd book and Brent was editing it, I would go through it and he would highlight an entire paragraph. I'm like, oh God, what happened? And I'd look at the comment to the right of it and he's like, are you even trying here? I'm like, yes, okay, need some work. I can do this. Yeah, he motivated me to make it better. So,
but honesty is a good thing in the writing process, I think. Did you say that you had a second piece to read for us? Because we are running up on almost 2:45-ish.
I do. I can forego it if there were other questions.
I want you to read it. That's why I'm making the invitation. Read it.
Okay, so after Frank has set fire to the house, the person in question, the killer, has gotten word that the house has gone up in flames. And he has somebody, his name is Tudor, Toter, who goes with him. Tudor he's just basically a pawn. And the guy is basically just poking around the remains at this point. Hey, you, a voice behind them called out. This area is cordoned off. You're trespassing. William turned slowly, non-threateningly, around. Just a fireman, and only a fireman. Straggler, last one out. Did the answer really matter? You the owner? The fireman came closer, axe still in hand, and smelled like the inside of a fireplace, soot and all. A dark scent of something quite dead, surrounded by many other dead things, all decaying together. A familiar smell, really, comforting even. I am. William stepped up to where the staircase to the front door used to stand, all rubble now, ashes and bits of wood. May I borrow that to dig around a bit? He pointed to the fireman's axe. Sure, the man handed the tool over. William used the axe to poke around in the ash, moving things around, mixing debris together, and appearing as if looking for something. We had a bunch of crews from the area helping out, the fireman informed him. No way we could have handled this one ourselves, not out here. The captain knew right what to do and who to ask for assistance. He made sure it was contained, but William quite suddenly found his attention on this single, until recently, insignificant man. The captain said something odd. He mumbled it, but I thought I heard him say something about the house being cleansed. I probably heard him wrong. He probably meant the house couldn't be lived in again because of something like mold. It wasn't in the greatest shape anyway. William nodded towards Tudor. Sound about right? Mold. Sure, Tudor agreed. I'd have had to tear the place down before I could sell the property. William snickered. Whoever's responsible obviously did me a favor. I should thank him for it, but I should also thank the captain for not letting the fire destroy the rest of the area. I don't suppose you could tell me the captain's last name. Gerard, Captain Gerard. I remember him. Maybe I could send his wife some flowers? Least I could do with him saving so much of the property. She'd like that. The fireman's face lit up. Woman is a heck of a cook. Mouth like a sailor sometimes, though, but sweet as apple pie. If I'm not mistaken, William stepped closer to Tudor and the fireman. He lives real close to the police station. A guess, but typically a very good guess, and one that always elicited the right response. Just down the street at the end of Walnut. Can't miss it. Believe me, he grinned. I won't. Tudor? Tudor turned and stared at him, creases in his forehead. Most likely uncertainty. Yes? William pointed to the fireman. Kill him. What? Tudor's eyes narrowed. I said, kill him. Hey now, the fireman took a step backwards. You all putting one over on me because it's really not funny. Tudor laughed, nervous laughter. Probably. I don't know what you mean. How? William lashed out with the axe and smashed a flat end into the fireman's throat. The man tumbled backwards onto the ground, clutched what would certainly turn black and blue with bruising, and gasped for air. William yanked Tudor's shirt with the other hand and pulled them face to face. Watch carefully. He pushed Tudor down to the ground next to the fireman. William tilted his head to the side and allowed his neck to crack. So much tension, time to let it out. He raised the axe, beautiful weight, nicely balanced in his hand, a formidable tool, not just for fighting fires. Like this. The fireman managed one scream, or at least it was as close to a scream as the man could get with his throat nearly crushed. William brought the axe down. The scream, such as it was, trailed off. Streams of dark red liquid landed on Tudor's face, dripped down onto his shirt, and in the grass and dirt below. The earth could soak up the offering, and after daring defy William's hold over this bit of land, over this house, and the memories of Thomas. Tudor's eyes and mouth opened wide as William had ever seen anyone's open before, wide with what must surely be shock, maybe terror, of realizing that what just happened really did happen, and that he was still alive, at least for the moment. Tudor started to shake. No tears, but plenty of shaking, quaking even. William leaned down and grabbed a hold of Tudor's jaw, tenderly tilting the man's head up so they could look at each other in the eyes. This is my freedom. This is who I am. This is what you want too. Tudor started to speak, only whatever words trying to escape his tiny little mind came out in a short, garbled jumble. Tears now. Tears fell and mixed with the blood on his face, washing the sin away. Almost poetic. But would the tears cleanse his face and soul like the fire had the house? Or would the tears and blood mix, combine, and develop a taste for each other? William watched and waited. The sides of Tudor's mouth turned up into the beginnings of a smile. No more horror, no more terror. Longing for what could be. The tears and blood had mixed. Something new was being born. Tudor's tiny little mind took its first step into larger possibilities. I have something I want you to do, Tudor, William whispered. Something that will get you started on your way.
Well done. Thank you. Wow. This is the wow. Okay. I really need to get on my reading because I need to get to this book. Questions out there. Andrew, you said there was a question?
Yes.
There is a question inside of the Q&A asking if there is a fifth book.
Okay, who's the smart aleck?
That would be JP Adkins. That would be the smart aleck today.
All right. The end of the third book, there are some strands that I left dangling in the third book, and some of those strands are answered in the fourth book. The very last line of the third book pretty much dictates what a final fifth book will be about. I'm not writing that one right now. I'm taking a year from writing the fifth book. I'm writing something else right now. I'm about 11,000 words into another book because I need a little break from it. But once I'm done with it, I will get back into it and finish this series with the fifth book, which will bring everything full circle.
Awesome. And we look forward to that. But I'm so glad you're taking a year off because I need to read book 3 before I can read book 4. So I'm glad you're taking some time so I have some time to play catch up. So I appreciate that. Brent, are there any other questions? Or I know that you guys are, you have a plan. I know that's completely like shot out the window now. Andrew, you had your hand up. I saw that.
Of course I had my hand up. You know how I do that. And Deborah seems to be echoing the same thing that I am. In your reading and in the books, there's such passion. Do you usually write like that, with that much passion at all times? Because I have your books but haven't read them yet. They're on the stack. I'm
gonna say yes. When I was writing comedies, comedy to me was a lot easier because it was like set up, punchline, or set up and then later on you had the payoff, and it was a very, very different way of doing it. I did not know how this was going to go. I really wanted the challenge of trying to write books with more than just 2 characters. Larger group of characters who you could identify with, who you wanted to cheer on, who you really, really wanted to see through, and you got to be friends with. One of my friends had asked me the other day, do I like the fact that people ugly cry when they read these books? And my answer to that was, I ugly cried writing it, they can darn well ugly cry reading it.
Absolutely.
But Andrew, I won't release something unless I am emotionally touched by it with this series, which is why I'm not going through a traditional publisher. I wanted this series to be all my vision. Fail or succeed, it was going to all be on me.
I think it was a good choice. Well done, sir. Any other questions from our audience out there? Everybody's been pretty quiet. Do you guys have any questions you'd like to ask Caroline?
Yeah, there's a couple of questions actually in the Q&A again. So I'll speak for Tim Eagle.
Thank you.
What's the place your characters come from or go to? Describe it, please.
Well, I missed the first part of that.
What's the place your characters come from or go to? Describe it, please.
Where they come from and where they go to.
Like, yeah.
I'm going to say probably every one of these characters, there was a little tiny piece of me. It's like taking a bust, shattering it, and saying, I'm going to put this little piece in this character, that little piece in that character, and just creating all these new characters out of little shattered pieces of psyche. That's where I'm going to say they came from. Where they're going to, I don't always know that until I've written the book. With these 4 books now, I have done the same thing. I've written the first chapter. I have written the last chapter. So I know how it started. I know exactly how it's going to end. How it gets there is the mystery for me as well.
Yeah, I don't know how you do that. Okay, moving on. Caroline, was there another question?
There's no more in the Q&A, but I feel like you need to see some of these comments that are coming through in the chat, and I'm just gonna go through some of them for you because I know when you're speaking it's hard to see it, but it's worth it to hear them. So that was excellent, very impressive, very awesome. Oh my word, I'm reading all of your books. Your passion shows through in everything you write. Amazing. That was from your nemesis in this group, from Deborah. Super job. You know, I'm only halfway through book 3. Love the blend of comedy and emotion in this one. So yeah, the comments that have been rolling through right through your reading have been amazing. Sorry, Deborah.
I think we racked up about $200 that I need to send out to those people about now so far. Like a 20 for everyone I got a comment from.
Awesome. Brent, is there anything on your notes that I may have missed, sir?
I think we got through pretty much everything. So
that's astounding. Chris, don't you think that's astounding?
We got to it a little different way, but we got there.
Awesome. Perfect. This is great because it means that we're staying right on track, right on time. I want to give everybody another opportunity to just turn on your mics and scream your thoughts to Kristoffer. You don't have to put them in the chat if you don't want to. You can turn on your microphone. Feel free to raise your hand and speak just so we don't talk over the top of each other. Feel free to give him your thoughts and feelings on his work. So go ahead, raise your hands, turn on your mics. Feel free to talk. Go ahead, Durf.
I have 2 questions. The first was regarding a phrase you used earlier called head hopping.
Yes.
And I wanted you to describe that. Is it what I think it is?
With head hopping, I had to learn it because it was nailed into me by Eden Winters. She actually bought me a book on how not to head hop. It's when you've got a scene going and you jump from one character's point of view into another's character's point of view within the same scene. Usually, if you're going to jump like that, you end the scene, you go and you make a clear separation and then go into it. Whereas when you're writing comedy, oh my God, I can't do that because there would be so many separations you wouldn't want to read the book. So I was head hopping and I didn't think anything of it. People reading were going, well, you head hopped. I'm like, did you think it was funny? Yes, then I don't care.
Yeah. And you're right. Head hopping, you can get away with a lot more head hopping in comedy than you can in more serious works.
You can to a point. I mean,
yeah.
Eden would say to me, I've gotten a lot better about it, but he wouldn't say, you know what, that character can't know that at this time. I'm like, oh, right. You're right. Okay, so you have to make it a question, you know. the person's frowning. Are they confused? Are they this? So you have to add that in there and just saying, well, they are.
Yeah.
My
Dirk,
second
what was your second question, Dirk? Go ahead.
Do you sell these books as a set?
I don't actually. I do from home. I mean, I've got copies. I don't have the new one yet because I think Amazon's going to take an extra week and a half before they'll send me my copies that I've ordered. They sell it as a set, I believe. I know on ebook they sell it as a set. I don't know if they sell it as a set in hard copy, but once I've got them, I sell them.
Awesome.
Awesome. Yeah, and if you connect directly with Chris, he would be pleased to inscribe them and sign them for you. Rather than buying them on, if you buy them from Amazon, you can't get them signed. But if you connect with Chris directly, he'll sign them for you, which is always kind of cool.
And it goes towards my retirement. Please get me out of healthcare.
Yeah. Save Chris's sanity. That's going to be the banner. Save Chris's sanity. Buy books.
The rehab unit loves me, but the rest of the place, no.
Anyone else have any questions or comments for Chris before we wind this up and give some free stuff away?
Happy birthday. Happy birthday.
Thank you. I'm old now.
Yes, definitely happy birthday.
I don't want to hear it, Chris. Go ahead. Anybody else? David, you had your hand up. Go ahead.
I did. Hey, Chris. Happy birthday.
Hey, Dave.
How are you? That wasn't my question. I'll ask that question later. But I'm just wondering, you've been writing for a while now, and are you finding any new challenges as the audience changed based on technology, social media, short attention spans? Is that a challenge, or is that something that works in your favor, or?
My audience changed a little bit, only that because I was writing such strong LGBT content. Once I got into this particular series and started writing under my own name, that changed a little bit, where I think anyone from any walk of life can get into Falling Awake and enjoy it or see something in it. We've all had friends who've passed away. We've all had parents who've passed away. We sometimes have all wondered, is there anything in another life? Have I lived a previous life type thing? So this kind of gives one possibility of it. So I've picked new readers up, straying away from just comedy. And what's neat is the people who were with me in comedy are discovering this, and the people who are discovering this have been going back to comedy. So I'm getting a little bit larger reader base from it, which I'm not writing these books with the intent of like, oh my God, what's popular right now? What's going to make me the most money? I'm just doing it because I feel I've got a story to tell, and I think it's a good enough story to share with other people. If I didn't, I wouldn't bother. I would write for myself, but I wouldn't release it. The digital age has made it interesting, especially with ebooks. There are some things going on with ebooks I don't like. I don't like that people can buy an ebook on Amazon, read it, and then return it.
I agree with you.
I don't like that. I mean, or they'll get a hard copy book and they can send the hard copy back after they've read it. Some people take advantage of it, not everybody. The ones that do are kind of ruining it for the rest.
Yeah.
And
I've never understood that ours is the only industry in the world where you have a thing called returns, where if a shop doesn't sell all your books, they can return them for a refund. I think that's crazy. And we are the only industry where that happens. So this is why I encourage all of you to support indie authors like Kristoffer, so that we can help get more great new stories out into the world and foster the really interesting imaginations that otherwise we wouldn't be able to see, because economics would dictate that we wouldn't. So I appreciate you, Kristoffer, for being cross-genre so that we can see more of your imagination.
Piggybacking real quick on what you said too. I've worked with several publishers. I'm glad that I worked with publishers. I'm glad that I learned what they were teaching me. I'm glad I learned that part of the business, because once I decided with Falling Awake that I was novella, I didn't think a publisher was going to touch a novella. I thought,
Sure.
great, this is me now. I'm going to interview my cover artist. I'm going to choose who my cover artist is. I'm going to choose what that cover is. It's going to be my interpretation. I'm going to choose my editors. I'm going to say, yes, I'm going to keep this edit. No, I'm not going to accept that edit, rather than have it rammed down my throat and said, this is how it's going to be. This felt like it was all mine. And I really liked that. But with a lot of indie authors too, a lot of things that get released on Amazon, there is no editing in it, or there's not as much editing, and it bogs the system down because there is so much content, and some of it may be very, very good, but at the moment it's crap.
Right. And we talk about this, the Harbor Crew, we talk about this all the time in Facebook Messenger, that, just because you can indie publish doesn't mean you should, or at the very least, get a professional team to help you with it.
It's going to cost you a little bit too, but it's worth it. Absolutely.
And then we can elevate the craft to a new level and bring everybody along with us. So that's kind of the goal, right? Okay, are there any other questions or comments out there before we move to the
books away?
Spinning wheel of happiness? Yeah, Chris is giving away stuff today, so that's pretty awesome. We like giving stuff away. So Chris, your giving stuff away hasn't changed since the last time we talked, right? It's all the same things?
Correct. We're going to do 3 single copies of the 4th book, and then, which Amazon still has not sent me my copies yet. It probably will be another week and a half before they do. We'll do 3 single copies of that, and then I will do 1 set of all 4.
Okay. I'm going to show you guys the book covers once again, just because I think it's important that you recognize them when you go to look for them later. So this is Kristoffer, and this is the Falling Awake series. Falling Awake, Revenant, Requiem, and now Retribution is book 4. So check those out. Here's Kristoffer's website. It's a pretty snazzy website. You should check that out too. If you'd like signed copies, that's probably where you want to go to connect with him. Okay. Awesome. All right. Is everybody ready? Kristoffer, you ready to give some stuff away?
I'm ready. Let's do this.
Okay. You know me in technology, so let's we're crossing our fingers here. Okay. Can you see the wheel, Chris?
I can see it.
Oh yeah, I pushed the right button. Okay. All right. Here we go. So we're gonna spin the wheel 4 times. So first 3 times are for copies of Requiem, which is Falling Awake 4. Right? No, Retribution, Falling Awake 4. And then the 4th time will be for an entire set. And Chris is going to sign those for you. So here we go. Hooray! Yay, Andrew. For those of you who are wondering, I just need to remind you the music is because we're doing Summer Reading Regatta. It's a sailboat pirate kind of theme thing. So that's where the music comes from. Okay, here we go. Spinning wheel number 2. Hooray! Yay, Diana. Brand new book for your shelf, madame.
She's got the other 3, so this will be perfect for her.
It is perfect. Okay, here we go. One more time. Hooray! Yay, JP. Woo! You get a copy also of the 4th book. And now we are going to spin one last time for the Falling Awake Complete Series set. Here we go. Hooray! Yay, Patricia Logan, you lucky ducks. Okay, now, some of you may, because you're really good friends with Kristoffer, may already have these books, and that's perfectly okay. He'll sign them and send them to you, and if you already have them, you can give them to somebody as a gift for Christmas time. So you can check off something off of your to-do list for December. See how helpful we are? We're so helpful. So now if you've won a book tonight and you're wondering, well, how do I get my book tonight? Caroline is going to tell you how you get your book. Go, Caroline.
So what you're going to do, so you've won this book, yay! And what you're going to do is by midnight tonight, remember, midnight tonight, you're going to send an email to Diana@pagespromotions.com, and I will put that in the chat, or somebody will in a minute, because this is her to-do list. And if you do not send her an email with your address tonight, then this book will actually just go right back into the spinny wheel of happiness and somebody else will win it. And that would be very sad.
That would be very sad. I know some of you may be coming from another country, and if you are, remember this is midnight Eastern Standard Time, because I don't do math and I don't know what time it is where you are. So midnight my time. Okay, awesome. Also, I want to tell you there's going to be something else coming to you. So I'm going to make sure Kristoffer gets all the information about signing the books, who to sign them to, and we're going to ship them out. But because this is part of our summer reading regatta, there's going to be a separate envelope coming to you aside from your book. And inside of that envelope will be a Life Raft lottery ticket. Make sure you scratch off the sale to see if you've won bonus prizes. We are giving away 15 additional bonus prizes this month. And just because you're here for Kristoffer, and we love that you're here for Kristoffer, there's no reason why you can't get in on all the rest of the fun too. Check it out on our Facebook page, check it out on our website, learn all the details there. I wanted to really devote a lot of time to Chris today, so get the details for our Life Raft lottery on Facebook or our website so that you can learn about how to get those bonus prizes. Also, I want to let you know that we are doing Sailor Shore School for this month as well. We have 2 more interactive workshops coming up. These are workshops on the writing craft. They're $5 for the live feed plus a transcript. They're $10 for the replay. And that will include the transcript as well. Again, jump on our Facebook page or our website if you want more details about getting in on these workshops. We've had 3 so far and they've been really spectacular. We've got 2 more left. Chris is actually going to teach one of these workshops with Brent on world building. So you might want to check your calendar and come back for that one. I believe that's the 28th, isn't it, Chris?
June 28th.
Okay. And then the other one we're doing is on the 27th with Andrew Smith, and he's going to teach us about writing weapons in fiction. And that's going to be rated PG-13 because we're going to get into some details about weaponry. So you want to make sure that younger ears are well supervised for that event on the 27th. Super fun, super cool. The other thing I want to let you know about is this wacky thing that we're doing. I love that our community is so playful in its competitive nature. Right now, we're having a virtual Port Huron to Mackinac race. And the way this happens is everybody today came into the room and you said, on the registration field, who recommended that you come or who invited you, and you put Chris's name, he gets a point for everybody who listed his name. If you forgot to fill out that field, Chris is going to be sad. But if you filled out that field, he will get a point and he will be able to move toward Mackinac Island. Right now, he and Captain D.A. Reed are in this comfortably competitive thing going on. And so he wants to jump ahead. D.A. Reed has another event later next week and she's hoping to jump ahead, but she's only 1 harbor stop away. So we'll see what happens when I tally up the results today. But all of our authors who finish this race will get a snazzy finisher's medal that you see right there on the screen. And then the prizes on the right-hand side are the prizes that the captain of the fleet will win. And we're going to spin the wheel to see who wins that on June 30th at our Venetian night wrap party. So if you want to come back for Venetian night, that one is open to everybody on the 30th of June at 7 p.m. Eastern. And you'll all be able to be on camera and on mic, and that event is not recorded. So come and have some fun with us. It's going to be a good time. In the meantime, watch for tomorrow on the Facebook page to see how far Kristoffer can jump in the standings and move toward Mackinac.
And the look on Deborah's face.
Yeah, see, comfortably competitive, that gently competitive. That's what we do. So last but not least, Harbor Store. Brent, would you tell everybody about this that we're doing?
Yes, if you go to pagespromotions.com to the Harbor Store, we all participating authors, including Chris, have our listings in the catalog, contact information for if you want to ask us questions, tell us off, or ask for an autograph. Everything is in that store, and it is completely 100% all fees go to the author. The Pages Promotion is not collecting anything from this. It's just the same as if you went to your neighborhood store, if they actually existed still, and bought the book that way.
Absolutely. Our goal is to support all of the authors. We have, I think, 54 authors participating this month. So if you're looking for additional reads, maybe you've already read Chris's work, or you're looking for somebody else to read, or you'd like to buy gifts, the Harbor Store is a quick, easy way to find great books where you don't have to Google search or Amazon search or get lost in the fray. You can concentrate on the really great stuff because we have it all there waiting for you. I'm so thrilled we got to do this, Chris. I am honored that you asked me to facilitate for you. Thank you very, very much.
I appreciate it. I did unfortunately leave one thing out. I did have in my notes, and I realized almost too late that I didn't get to mention it. Each one of the books, there is a dedication in each book. Usually it's for, you've heard my list of friends or family who are not with us anymore. And this particular book is in memory of a friend, had a 32-year friendship with him, Don Zomberg, who had passed away from brain cancer last year, who I met at Grand Valley State. We were English tutors together. We used to spend weekends in his room writing together with smart food popcorn, Coca-Cola, watching bad movies, complaining about them endlessly, and then just writing our hearts out. And I miss his friendship daily. I miss the comments. If Brent thinks he's a little snarky, he had not had an opportunity to meet Don, but I dedicated this particular book to Don in his memory.
Awesome. Thank you very much for remembering to tell us that. I always like to know where the dedications come from, because it really does reveal a great deal about the author's heart and soul. And so I appreciate that. All right. We are going to do one last run through my harbor crew that's here tonight, this afternoon. What time of day is it? I keep forgetting. Okay. So Caroline, do you have any parting shots across the bow?
Sure. This was really great, Chris. I'm so glad that I got to hear you read, and I'm so glad I was here. And even on your behalf, I just want to thank everybody for showing up, because it's an awesome turnout. And
it is.
Yeah.
We've never had this full a room. I have to keep switching my screen from one to the other. It's very, very cool. Shots across the bow, Sir Brent.
Yeah, I have read all 4 of these books. This is number 4 is definitely my very favorite, and I think everyone just read all of them just to get to this one, because this one is fantastic. You'll love it, and I'm glad to hear that there's someone with less tact than me.
Parting shots, Kristoffer Gair.
Thank you to everyone who showed up. I really didn't expect this response. Thank you so much. I appreciate it immensely. I'm overwhelmed. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. For those of you who would like to listen to Chris read again, or for those of you who know somebody who didn't get to come tonight, the replay will be posted on our Facebook page tomorrow, and Kristoffer will have a link that he'll be able to share with you as well. So check that out. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Have a wonderful night. Enjoy your holiday weekend. It is Father's Day on Sunday, and we'll be back to do it all over again on Monday night. Thank you, everybody. Have a good evening.